if in today's day and age, you're not using data to make your decisions for Amazon, you're doing it wrong. You cannot be guessing when it comes to implementing coupons or changing price. You need to have data backing up what is going on with your Amazon store. In that sense, it's important to not only look at the data, but you also have to collect it to even look at it in the first place. So I spoke today with Kenton Snyder from Intentwise, a company that does just that. They're really good at collecting the data and presenting it to you in a way that shows you how can you make better informed decisions, especially around Prime Day, around big holidays like Black Friday. It's really crucial, again, to use this data to make those decisions. So I'm excited for everybody to get an idea of how you can use Intentwise and just really why it is so important to look at the data and make these decisions. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Velocity Sellers Podcast. I am your host, Velocity Pete, and today we are joined by Kenton Snyder from Intentwise, and we're going to go over a few topics related to information gathering and information assessing. So you're going to stay tuned to hear about how you can leverage a lot of the information you get from Amazon and even from third-party sources to really help improve your Amazon storefront. So Kenton, thank you so much for jumping on today.
Yeah, of course, Pete. Thanks for having me.
So Kenton, give us a little bit of background into who you are and kind of, again, I want to talk a little about Intentwise and kind of what you guys do. But first, I want to hear your story, your e-commerce experience, and how you got into the space.
Yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned, I'm currently in a customer success role at Intentwise where manage a lot of our brand and agency partners, just an execution of our platform. I started off in e-commerce space at an Amazon agency, so working on things, whether it's sponsored ads, DSP management, even getting into things like content management and things like that. So some pretty good hands on the keyboard, different experiences there with some, larger brands, smaller brands, kind of across the board there. And then, like I mentioned, translated some of that over into the software side of the house and supporting brands and their usage of some of these different things. So really love to dive into like the data behind e-commerce, some of the creative ideas that we can get into, whether that's new creative strategies, new ad strategies, and how we can use data to support that.
Well, I'm all about data as well. I would say, a data nerd. I like looking at the numbers. So I'm interested to hear about kind of your take on some things and just kind of speculations for the future as well, and to hear your side of the story. But before all that, I do have to mention that Kenton and I, if you're watching this and you are an Eagles fan, you can turn it off now because me and Kenton do not like you because we are Cowboys fans.
Yes.
It's devastating to have to watch. I'm not even a Mavs fan first, foremost, but it was devastating to have to watch the Celtics win this year. They really kind of lost because Jason Tatum is a joke and a bit of a bum. But our Luka, our star, did not. He came through, but the rest of the team did not.
No one else did.
Yeah. It was a shame. It was a shame. So I had to get that out of the way. That I have finally, growing up in the area of Philadelphia, I've been surrounded by Eagles fans my entire life, except for my mother, who is a Cowboys fan as well. So it's great to have a fellow Cowboys fan on the podcast, even though we have been doing some very questionable.
It's not that great right now.
Yeah,
but
it's still our team, still America's team. So
exactly.
just had to put it out there. But yes,
listen, knowing how Eagles fans get treated in Dallas, I don't want to know what it's like in Philly for
horrible.
You. So
horrible. I won't get into that. That's a whole other episode of a podcast. I'll have you on. I'll have you on. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so looking at the numbers, I want to talk data. I do. And I want to hear about kind of what you guys are working on. I want to hear a little bit more about Intentwise. I know we briefly covered it in our initial meeting, but I want to hear what you guys are up to. I want to hear what is the kind of like what you guys do at the company and how it can help our audience and our audience of Amazon sellers.
Totally. Yeah. So Intentwise kind of covers three main pillars. So or three main apps that we offer for both brands and agencies. So we have our Ad Optimizer app, which if you're familiar with a Quartile or a Pack View, lots of similarities with those, where we have like an AI bidding system where you can make AI adjustments. We have automated rule system where you can go through and set up a series of automated rules to make bid changes, campaign changes, anything along those lines. And then we bring in a lot of different data views. One of my favorite things that we feature is like a giant dashboard of all your search terms data. So natively in the Amazon console, right? If I wanted to see how I'm performing on a search term level, I'm going to go either download the report in the back end or go through each individual campaign and go to the search terms. We kind of generalize it all into one view and allow you to manipulate the data, aggregate the data on that level. So I think those type of things are really cool in that front. And then a lot of our focus is on data as well. So we have an analytics tool which brings in all of your different data points. Within e-commerce in general, really, we support, mainly Amazon. A lot of the data is in that front, but we bring in Walmart data, Instacart, Criteo as well. If you want to, host all your data in one place, and then we have connections to visualization tools like Looker Studio and Power BI to allow you to get deep insights into your data, manipulate it in however way you see fit, without having to have your own direct connection in the Amazon API. And then our final tool, which is our more recent one, is around AMC. And that's one of my favorites. That's really what got me interested in coming to work at Intentwise was their push and focus on AMC. For anyone that's not familiar, AMC is Amazon Marketing Cloud. It's their clean room solution where you can bring in your sponsored ads data, your DSP data, and even upload first-party data from external sources if you have that available, and manipulate that with different attribution models. So the difficulties with that is the need for SQL knowledge to actually generate a lot of these reports. So our goal was to take that off of the end user's hand, whether it's an agency or a brand, and help you get some insights into your data without any SQL knowledge needed. So, whether that's how do we generate path to conversion, how do we look at things in a first touch attribution model, what do our new to brand customers look like? And I think that front from a data set of things is really where we can get a lot of valuable insights out of.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that sounds great. I'd love to talk more about really all three of them, and just kind of see again how each of these can really affect and help a Amazon seller develop and grow more.
Totally.
So yeah, let's start with the first one. Let's go into it. How can, again, basically, pack view quartile, yeah. But what makes yours unique and maybe different that would help again an Amazon seller manage their PPC campaigns and their different structures?
Yeah, I think it comes back to that data focus, right? So we recently released this new tool that we call What's Changed, where basically you compare two time periods. So say I wanted to look at the last 14 days versus the 14 days prior. We run a report, and within a couple of minutes, I have a report telling me what were my biggest change drivers on a campaign level, a keyword level, an ASIN level, with the ability to filter that report as I go into it on a, campaign naming logic. So if I have naming logic in my campaigns for product groups or certain promotions, and I want to see, I know that within my non-branded category targeting, I saw this shift, but I wanted to dive in deeper into that. So I filter down the report, and then I can see, where specifically did I see those shifts, and then dive more into that. And then, I can set up those automations, view those other dashboards that maybe have, more similarities with some other platforms, and then make those changes accordingly. Based off of what I find there. We also bring in different data enhancers, right? So I can set up sub-brands within my data, and that's applicable across all our tools where if I want to say, hey, I have, I guess an example that I run into before specifically is like if you have one Seller Central account or one ad access account, and within those, there's multiple brands that you're selling under. We allow you to kind of separate those out based off of naming logic. So I think things like that really make it unique because of that focus on data, plugging into some of those other different platforms as well.
Yeah, well, data is key. I was just talking about that today on another episode. Data, you have to have as much information as possible to really attack something with the best strategy or the best plan.
100%.
Yeah, so it sounds like this is great for learning more about kind of what you're maybe doing right, maybe doing wrong, and tweaking a little bit of it and really just improving your campaigns, your PPC performance.
Totally.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I know that could be a struggle for a lot of Amazon sellers. I know some people that we talk to or we come in and, we do an audit for somebody and, hey, you have, 80% of the spend in your last 30 days was wasted. No, a click with no sale. And you're never going to have 0%, obviously, but for them to have 80% of their spend not doing anything for them, I think they would say,
right.
Ooh, geez. So
need a change.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys can really identify a little bit on, why it's not working and how you can maybe adjust it better. So very cool program. Yeah. So the second pillar, give me a rundown again. How can this help a seller? How can it really move the needle for them? And what can they take from it?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference that we see from some of our competitors in the analytics space is some of our data tables that we've created. All right, so since we have this focus on e-commerce, there's other data tools out there that allow you to connect directly into APIs, but they don't have that focus on the Amazon, Walmart space or e-commerce space specifically. So natively, right, if I wanted to work in a Looker Studio, for example, and bring all my APIs over there with just the API connections, there's hundreds of tables that might have to work through that Amazon is hosting data in, joining tables, all of these different fronts. So what we've done is we've created a table that we call e-commerce graph, which basically is a collection of a couple of different tables that combines all that data for you. So I can see, I can combine in all my Amazon data right now. We have plans to support this for Walmart in the future as well, where I can then see, all ad types are merged into one table, whereas through the API natively, they're all separately. And I can still, all my products are merged into one table where I can still view them all individually, but from a data manipulation standpoint, I only have to work with one table. So we kind of pre-join a lot of the data that is commonly used, while also layering in some of those data enhancers I mentioned earlier. So we support, those sub-brands. We have a labeling feature where I can go through and I can, within Intentwise, label all of my different keywords, label my campaigns using a dynamic criteria that, I say, if this, then assign this label, bring that into the data warehouse automatically through our e-commerce graph tables. And I can filter down based off of that. I can segment my data based off of that. So a lot of those different data enhancers, we bring in things like currency conversions. If you're in multiple marketplaces, how can you convert that over really easily? So I think just that focus on e-commerce makes things a lot different than a lot of those other connectors that you might be able to get to just bring in the API connection.
Yeah, wow. And I love the sound of that currency converter too. I know a lot of these big people are in, or even if you're a smaller Amazon business, but you're looking to expand, that sounds like it makes it a little bit easier than, trying to do it on your own.
Totally.
Or just
I mean, I think a
Googling
lot of
the rate.
yeah. I think a lot of the focus, right, that I've seen online and some of these different, networks around the e-commerce space is like, hey, everyone needs to be pushing into these other marketplaces. There's lots that goes into that, lots of different regulations. But yeah, currency conversion is one of those things. Like when I'm understanding my data, right, I know I've worked with like an account in Mexico in the past, and it's like, oh wow, my ROAS looks great, but like it's because my price is way higher here
Yeah.
in comparison. So it's, I think, being able to easily get that manipulation done is super valuable as well.
Yeah, yeah. And we had an episode. We had Mike Begg on, and he was talking about expanding into the new marketplaces, and that's not an easy thing to do. So it's something this would make it
Definitely not.
a lot more streamlined too. Of working on saying, okay, can I be profitable in this marketplace? Would this make
Yep.
sense for me? Aside from just looking at, demand is obviously a big thing there too. But am I going to be profitable in this type of market with this country's currency type of thing? So yeah, very cool,
Totally.
very cool. Wow, and I think the third one I want to get to, and I want to also ask you if you wouldn't mind sharing some examples like you did for the first one. For all of them, I'd love to hear like real life examples of how you guys are using this to improve a business or increase those metrics in that sense. But I do want to give a rundown of the third one, which, to be honest with you, sounds the most interesting to me. So AMC, give me an example or give me a quick elevator pitch on how you guys are using this to, again, improve the quality of life for Amazon sellers.
Totally. So like I kind of mentioned earlier briefly, natively in the AMC console, you need a lot of SQL knowledge to really execute everything or anything. So what we've done is try to make it as easy as possible to use. So you don't even need your own AMC account. You just simply give us your, DSP ID, your sponsored ads ID. We'll go through, we'll create that instance for you, start collecting data, make sure you have the ability to backfill some of that data. And then we have a pre-canned list of both report types or query types and audiences. You go into our platform, just click, I want to execute this query. You have the option to add a couple of filters if you want, like, hey, only run it for these DSP orders, only run it for these search orders. And you could set it on a recurring basis. So, hey, I want to collect this data monthly or weekly. And that's it. We will go through once a month in an example and say, hey, I want to look at path conversion data. We have that pre-canned in our library. I just click, hey, I want to run this once a month. Once a month, we'll collect that path to conversion data for you and store it in our data warehouse. On top of that, because it's great to have that data, have access to it, but visualizing it's a whole another step. So we have a library of templates for most of those instructional queries that Amazon provides, like path to conversion, first touch attribution, a lot of those things. And then also a embedded dashboard system for a lot of those queries as well. So you can template them out, take them out to Looker Studio or Power BI, similar to that analytics platform, or you can view them in platform. I can view my path to conversion data month over month directly in the platform just by making that one execution. On top of that, we have the same thing for audiences. So if you want to say, hey, I want to, for an example, look at people who have added to a list but haven't purchased. That's pre-canned in the library. I just click, hey, I want to execute this. Put any filters you want within 24 hours, as long as you just put in your settings to what look back window do you want, all of that. As long as you meet the minimum audience requirements within 24 hours, that'll be in your DSP library to use as an audience. So we're really trying to make it as simple as possible for a lot of those standard executions. And then we have an internal team as well that if you have things that are a little more custom, we always encourage people, start off with these, pre-canned things that we have available. But to really reach its true full power out of AMC, you need to define what that data story looks like for your brand or your agency specifically. And that's not going to be a one size fits all. So we have a team ready to help all our customers execute those audiences, those queries to answer those custom business questions without any SQL knowledge needed on the customer's end.
Very cool. Wow. Yeah. And I'd love to hear some real life examples of how you guys have used this. If you could share them on just, again, how has this helped an Amazon seller? How have you guys done something crazy? Or really any crazy stories you have from using the software or learning it or anything like that. I'd love to hear just kind of your experience with all three of these.
Yeah. I think on the ad optimizer side, a lot of the bigger things that we've seen have been like through our recommendations engine. I think is something I didn't touch on quite yet. So I think we've seen some brands that have seen quite a big success, like launching new products, especially maybe on the smaller seller side, where maybe you're just working as yourself. You're not going to hire an agency. You don't have someone specifically for ads because you're newer to the platform. And so, I'm going to launch a campaign with a couple keywords. Maybe it's my first time working with Amazon ads. So we have a recommendations engine where I set, hey, on a campaign level, this is the ACoS I want to target. And we will bring in, bid recommendations on a daily basis. So, hey, based off of your performance relative to your target, here's some changes you should make. Here's some new keywords you should target based off of your performance. Here's some gaps you have in your keyword strategy. So, hey, maybe you have this keyword in sponsored product campaigns and it's performing well, but you don't have it in any sponsored brand campaigns. You should consider adding it. You have this ASIN that's performing well in sponsored product. Maybe you should consider adding it as a sponsored brand campaign. So I think we've seen a lot of those new sellers see a lot of success just taking advantage of this recommendations engine, because it kind of makes a lot of those recommendations you might get from an agency or someone consulting you from an ads perspective automatically as you kind of progress over time, as you get some of those performance metrics in, and based off of what is performing well. And it's really simple to implement. So I think we've seen a lot of scenarios where some of those newer sellers, newer brands get a lot of value in growth out of those type of tools.
Yeah. This is exciting. Like I said, this is something that I love data. I love getting as much data as possible. So hearing that you can kind of incorporate all of this stuff to present to the partner and to the person you're working with and to the account, like, hey, you could be doing this a little bit better based on these numbers kind of thing, is really, really, really cool.
Yeah. I think something on the analytics side, when I was on the agency side of the house, reporting was one of the biggest pains we ran into, right? Just custom requests or even just recurring reporting, right? Just getting something consistent satisfies the client's needs. And so I think something that I've seen really be helpful for a lot of the larger agencies that we work with is helping them automate a lot of that reporting, right? So, we've had several examples of agencies, right, where we can set up a custom Looker Studio dashboard for them, and all of that data gets piped into that data warehouse. They're able to manipulate things how they need to if they have custom requests. We have a template library if they have custom requests. So I think we've seen a lot of agencies really be able to streamline their reporting process from what they've been able to see in the past, and take that lift off of some of their team, which, coming from that agency perspective, I think has been really cool to see through some of those partners.
Wow. And I want to get into also DSP. I know you mentioned that too, and it's something that is not available to every single Amazon advertiser, but for those that have it available, or for those that do have it, I feel like it's underused. I feel like it's not something that they maybe even sometimes even know that it's there, especially if you're like a bigger brand that's on Amazon as maybe like a side thing or just like a side piece of your business, or again, where Amazon's not, your main focus. I'd love to get into, DSP with you and talk about how they really can leverage it and how you guys can help them use it to the most of their ability. So can we get into DSP a little bit? Tim, give me a rundown on how you guys use it and how an Amazon seller can use it as well.
Yeah. I think DSP, a lot of that is executed through our agency partners, right? A lot of that takes a little bit more creativity, hands-on keyboard work. A lot of it's already automated, so the room for a tool provider, I think, is a little bit different on that front. Obviously, we still support it from the data side, the AMC side, which I think can provide some value. But I think it really comes down to having that creative thinking going into it. And I think from what I see, there's a lot of misconceptions about like the utilization of DSP, how the effectiveness of DSP. And I think Intentwise and our data capabilities can help bridge some of the gaps in those misconceptions. But I think a lot of it is how you approach it as well. I think I see people either fall on one of two sides that are complete opposite sides of thinking when it comes to DSP. It's either it's not incremental at all, my ROAS is way too high, I'm just getting sales that I would have gotten already, or it's too upper funnel, I'm not getting any, sales associated with this. I can't measure the sales associated with. Feels like it's either, too low funnel or too high funnel. It feels like very opposite sides of the same coin. And the way I approach it is like, how do we balance in between those, right? I think it requires both the strategies on each one of those sides. I think even for smaller brands up to those large scale brands, right? Like you need to have obviously some level of remarketing or retargeting to bring, back those purchasers that have purchased from you in the past, seen your product page. Maybe some of them would have purchased already, but right, I'm able to kind of guarantee that. But while I'm doing that, right, if I have a fear that maybe I'm cannibalizing some of my sales, I need to also be pouring new customers into that funnel, getting more customers down the purchase journey so that when I get to that remarketing segment, there's a reason I have that on because I'm trying to convert those users that I saw higher in the funnel. So that's where some of those, in market targeting, those lifestyle-based targetings come into play. So I think brands having those, well centered, well circled strategies becomes really important. And I think working with agency partners that really understand that is key for brands trying to get into DSP.
Yeah. And I know, like I said, it's a very, very cool program, and I get why it's not available to everybody. But it's just a very interesting idea, and I'm excited to continue to learn more about it. But yeah. The other thing I also wanted to, speaking again strictly on advertising, at the time of this recording, Prime Day is coming up. So how are you guys, if anything, doing? Or do you guys work with any kind of preparation and strategy for Prime Day? Do you help partners kind of take a look at, okay, this is what you can do to really sell as much as you can reasonably? Like what's your approach to these big holiday kind of times?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Prime Day is definitely on top of everyone's mind right now. I think, on the day of side, there's value in, how can I set up things that are automatically done? How can I, maybe I've day parting, ramping my budgets up throughout the day so that I don't have to be hands-on keyboard throughout the day. Looking at this, I know when I've been on the agency side, it's just heads down, hands-on keyboard all day, increasing bids, increasing budgets. And so you can preset some of that to maybe take some of that load off of you or your team. I think where a lot of the value comes in is post Prime Day, though. There's a newer AMC execution that Amazon released the capability to do called a tentpole phase overlap. If you guys are familiar with that, but basically allows me to define, hey, this is my lead in period, this is my event period, and this is my lead out period. And from AMC, we have customers who have pre-existing data, so they've been able to pull these reports for previous periods. Amazon actually supports for new instances that we get data all the way back from last July. That'll change because we only store 12 and a half months of data as an Amazon limitation. So as we move past that time frame, will change. But this execution allows us to basically compare if someone sees an ad from me in the lead in and event period, so saw it in both, how does that affect their conversion rate during the event period? Or if they compared to if they just saw it during the event period, what was their conversion rate? or if they saw it in the event period and the lead out, what was their conversion rate in the lead out period compared to if they only saw in the lead in and the lead out. And I think getting some of those insights, especially from past events, can help me say, hey, here's how I should go in and strategize, especially on the DSP or even using things like sponsored display for this event. But also as I get past, how do I evaluate well what worked, what didn't work, what should my strategy be going forward? I think those type of reports, the ability to segment between them, can give some really cool insight for brands, especially as Prime Day continues to become more competitive. There's more and more of these events. We know lead in and lead out are important. So how can we make sure that going forward, we have a well-rounded strategy for the events?
Yeah, and I was just talking about Prime Day today as well. Like you said, it's on anyone that deals with Amazon is like, okay, how do I, make Prime Day successful without breaking the bank and without, losing all my inventory and not having anything for the following, a couple of months. And it's very interesting to see how many people say, okay, I'm not doing super well this year, or I'm not doing super well this quarter, but Prime Day will save me. Prime Day will be my the reason my business comes back, and it's absolutely not. I can't stress this enough. You cannot use Prime Day as your savior of your business. If you're not doing good leading into Prime Day, you're probably not going to be doing good on Prime Day either. Or God forbid you sell through all your product and now you have nothing for post Prime Day.
Totally.
But it's,
I've seen it. I think everyone should expect to see a sales lift for the most part, but your competitors are still your competitors. Your competitors are aware that this event is going on, and they probably have more budget. Sadly, I know I was working with a pretty large brand in a competitive category Prime Day last year, and they have a fairly large budget. A budget that most ad managers would be thrilled to have for Prime Day. But as you get into it, just because the category was so huge, it was in like a personal care space. We saw that we had one of our top competitors was just taking every placement all day. And we're like, they got to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars over these 2 days. And there's just nothing we can do about that. They're willing to spend whatever it costs to get the placement. And most categories are going to have someone like that, depending on how relevant it or how aggressive it is. So I think, go into it. There's definitely ways to capture market share, to capture some of those extra sales velocity. But I think taking the learnings out of it and learning how you can apply those to your day-to-day or to lead in and lead out of future events. I think I've seen examples of sellers where they don't really do well at all on Prime Day because Prime Day is a lot of customers coming in for those quick purchases. And so you need to be aggressively discounted. You need to have people recognize your brand and name. And so I've seen sellers who, hey, we're not going to focus on Prime Day at all, but the lead in and lead out period, which we know also have extra velocity because there's still deals going on. We're going to put all our focus on those. So we're putting our heaviest deals in the lead in and lead out because there's still increased traffic and seeing great success with that. And so I think it's, take your learnings. If this is your first Prime Day or second Prime Day, take your learnings and maybe there's a creative strategy like that will come out of it based off of, how your category kind of shapes up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I didn't mean to say, I don't want to scare anybody saying don't do Prime Day. You should absolutely always participate in some way for Prime Day. Whether it is the lead up and lead out, like you said, I love dropping coupons the day before the couple days leading up to Prime Day and then the couple days following, just because I know people are still looking for deals. And part of the reason I do that is because I know that that's a viable and legit strategy. So I know to look for the coupons when I'm shopping myself. So if I as a shopper know how to do it, I as a seller should know how to do it as well, kind of thing. Exactly. So I know it'll work. But it absolutely is something that is almost necessary for every seller, I would say, again, to participate in some way. Like I said, you don't have to do these crazy discounts where you're losing money on, where you're, throwing away money on each sale. But do have some sort of coupon on there because people are going to be looking for deals. Do still try and advertise because you might lose to a crazy person spending $100,000 between 2 days of Prime Day. But you're still going to be in one of those spots in some searches. And, it seems like it would be worth it to even, again, still be in somewhat of a discussion with these people. Again, even if they are, I know our advertising guy, Chris, would love to have a six-figure ad budget for a lot of his accounts. But
I think everyone would.
Yeah, but every ad manager, you're right. But yeah, no, very, very cool. And like I said, I know that's a big thing. It's probably the same for Fall Prime Day and Black Friday as well.
Yep.
I know we take a look at the data from last year and say, okay, this is how we did. This is what worked, but didn't work. The people buying our products are most likely still the same or the same kind of shopper. So we can really implement a lot of what worked and kind of avoid what didn't, and keep improving, keep optimizing. So it's very, very cool to say, okay, I can, really understand and learn what went wrong last year, what succeeded last year, and then use it this year.
Totally. I mean, there's a reason that this is the top selling days for Amazon the entire year, right? If you can capture a percentile of it, you're gonna be well off, right, for most sellers. So, yeah, it's just how can you go into with the strategy? How can you learn from it so you're better prepared next time? Test things, right? Like if you're not sure if this is one of you're newer to Amazon, this is one of your first Prime days, try something out. Maybe it doesn't see the same velocity and you try something again next event. But maybe it does. Maybe it works really well. And like you're mentioning, like if it works now, it's probably going to work next year. It's probably going to work in October. It's probably going to work in November, right? So you can continue to re-implement this and test new things. So it's always one of the most exciting times in my perspective. There's lots of new things you can try, lots of traffic to be had, and it's just making sure you go into it with how a plan for controlling budgets, controlling your spend, keep that as your baseline, but set something aside to try some of these different things that you've been wanting to try.
You got to have some control. Because again, to recall something I was just talking about today, the pinwheel or the flywheel example of, it's really easy to get that pinwheel spinning and it's easy to keep it spin, or it's hard to get the pinwheel spinning initially. When it's not spinning, you got to really put some effort in to really get it going. But then when it is spinning, it's easier to keep it going than it is to, have it stop and then keep going again. Same thing with Amazon. It's really hard to get your Amazon sales off the ground. But if you can kind of maintain a steady flow of purchases and sales and keep that velocity, keep that volume going, it's easy to kind of keep it at that level and then slowly move up to the next one. But if you're on Prime Day and you're not prepared and you sell out of all your inventory, then you're back to nothing, you're back to zero, then it's going to be difficult to get from after Prime Day to, moving forward to fall and to November and December and Christmas shopping and all that kind of good stuff. So it's important to have a plan. It's important to know that, if you're getting close to selling out of all your product, you really don't want to go out of stock. It's one of the worst things, in my opinion, that you can do to your Amazon store is run out of product, because then you lose all your ranking, all your keyword ranking, your BSR plummets, all of it. So you really want to make sure that you are locked in for Prime Day and that you understand the volume that you couldn't expect to see. But
yes,
yeah,
I do think it's funny that while everyone goes to the Prime Day, we want to sell a lot. You don't want to sell too much though, because while you may get the sales on Prime Day, the rest of the year is not going to look pretty if you sell too much. So I think that's another thing that goes into your ad budget, right? Like, or your ad management of, if I going into this and I say, hey, I need it. If I sell X amount, if I sell $100,000 in these 2 days, then I'm happy with what I got from a sales. I beat last year, but I still have good inventory. I could still get in time to get my next shipment in before I run out. So think about like what do my conversion rates look like on a normal day? What do my conversion rates look like on the last time there was an event? What did cost per click look like the last time there was an event? Sure, there might be marginal changes, but largely it's probably going to be the same. And so now I can know, hey, what does my ad budget need to be to get to that point? What cost per clicks do I need to aim for? What bids do I need to set? And you kind of work backwards from that point so that you don't aim to oversell, but you also are setting yourself up in a good place to not be underselling your goals. And again, comes back to just going into a plan, making sure you're planning well, and then after the event, evaluating well for the next time around.
absolutely. And it all comes back to having that data, having the information
Exactly.
available to you and using it in the way that can help you make the right decision kind of thing. So yeah, very, very cool. Like I said, Prime Day is a big focus on everybody's mind. It has been since they had to submit their coupons last week. So I have no doubt that this is
I think
something
it's been
that
big since last Prime Day. I don't know. I
yeah,
think people have been talking about it since last Prime Day.
yeah, it's true. And last Prime Day they sold, I think it was something billion. I think it was like 9 something billion, 10 billion.
Yeah,
This year,
crazy.
I see some people predict 13.5 billion.
It'll beat it probably by a big margin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is crazy, but it makes sense. And even with all these new fees that they've been putting out and all these different changes that they've made recently, Amazon they know that people are still going to be shoppers are still going to be on there. So, and that's just very, very interesting. But I know also, I don't know if you heard about this we mentioned a little bit about Walmart and how you guys are working on a Walmart integration, but Walmart is doing their own Prime Day the week
Of course.
before Amazon's.
Oh,
Isn't that
really?
crazy?
Normally they're matching it, right? I've always seen them match exactly. That's why I've always heard Amazon wait so long to announce it. So Walmart's gonna try to do it the same week. Target's gonna do it the same week. Everyone's gonna have promotions, and all the consumers are loving it. But that's interesting. The week before, I know they're wanting to differentiate themselves. So I guess that's next week, right? So they that one's quick prep.
Yeah, this is it's very, very interesting move from Walmart. I think it's very funny. It's a little bit of a troll move for them to say, okay, we're going to make sure that ours is the week before, so people are spent out on shopping and
Right.
that they don't want to buy anything else, or they can get it from Walmart, not from Amazon, kind of thing. It's very interesting for them. And theirs is 3 days instead of 2. So their Prime
Huh.
Day is, I want to say, and I don't think it's called Prime Day. I'm pretty sure it's called something else, maybe Walmart shopping something. But it's or maybe it's the summer sale. I think that's what it's called. I think it's the 9th, 10th, and the 11th. So if you have a Walmart shopping account, or if you want a good deal, go make or you don't have to make an account, but go check out Walmart for their deals. Maybe you might find something on there that might be even maybe even a better deal than Amazon. I don't think so, but I'm curious to see how this works for the Amazon side of things. See if this really does maybe knock down some of their sales, or I wish there was a way to measure or do like a poll of like, hey, do you think you shopped on Walmart last week? Are you going to participate in Amazon Prime Day as well?
Right.
But yeah, one of those. I need like a pick foo poll for that or something.
It's gonna be
But
really segmented. We somehow gonna
yeah,
get Walmart data.
yeah. And I'm excited to see we have some Walmart customers on our side, and I'm excited to see how they do in increase in sales, if it's really competing with Amazon Day, or Prime Day, if it's something that it's a viable option. I'm sure it will be because it's Walmart, but I know their goal, their whole, their main focus is in e-com. Walmart's main focus is how do we get people in stores more.
Yep.
They're never gonna. I don't think that I don't need to knock on wood. They're never gonna beat Amazon in terms of the e-com space. But it's interesting to see all the things that they're doing to their e-com space, like this Walmart Prime Day. Because it feels like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do want to compete more on the electronic, the e-commerce side of things, the digital com. So very interesting to see how this shakes out. I'm very excited to see the numbers from
Yeah.
their end of things. So
No, I think that's really cool. I think obviously they know how things are trending and they know how sales are trending. Obviously they're still doing fine in the retail space, but they see, that we can get this extra margin here from the e-commerce side. And I'm sure they set out with goals to compete with Amazon, but I think we've kind of seen over the last couple of years that they're probably not going to get to that point. If they can take 10% of Amazon, I'm sure they'd be thrilled with that. Um, but always found it interesting how they compete on deal periods, like just this difference in volume that they get. I would almost expect that, like, if it was going to ever be closer, Walmart would, especially like Black Friday, Walmart would have like more competition just because you associate, at least several years ago, Black Friday with these retail events, in-store events. And so maybe now, okay, thinking about retail presences, how do I take those online? There might be some adaptation to those sales periods. But from what I've seen, obviously there's still a pretty large gap in what you can expect. But hey, from a seller's perspective, if you're on Walmart, still something to take advantage of, right? Still, in all these deal periods, even if they do align, because there are still segments of shoppers shopping there, people shopping on both. Maybe your Walmart sales affect Amazon sales, or vice versa. If you have a Prime Day deal and a Walmart deal before it, maybe someone sees your Walmart deal, decides not to purchase because they know Prime Day is coming up, and they come look for you on Prime Day to see what your deal looks like. And so I think there's still lots of benefits from the overlap of these two. And I think one thing I've always been interested to hopefully one day see is the measurement between all these platforms,
yeah,
right? If only they let us share data.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
If someone makes a data warehouse that brings in individual clean room data from all these different sources, they'll make a lot of money. I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be really cool to just see, how do people who see it on Walmart affect Amazon sales, or see on Target affect Amazon sales, or all these different ways you can go
I
around.
don't know if every site would give you the permissions for it, but it'd
Probably
be very
not.
cool.
Yeah.
It'd be very cool. Maybe they can all work together and kumbaya and make this as their own kind of thing, the platform. Like, oh, this is, looking at all the different metrics that you can think of. Be very interesting, and even more so interesting that, Amazon, if you sell on both Walmart and Amazon, you got to make sure that your listings don't get taken down because of the whole
The deal,
price
yeah.
enforcement.
Oh, wow.
It's still scary
Lining up with different periods.
because
Yeah.
Amazon's
No,
going to see it.
that's interesting.
Amazon's going to see it and
Yeah.
say, hey, that's not the lowest. Ours isn't the lowest price anymore. What's going on here? We're going to flag you, and you don't want to get flagged right before Prime Day. So it's a double
So I
whammy.
guess is the solution 2 weeks of Prime deals, or make your Walmart deal less than your Prime Day deal, and you treat this as your lead-in. I think there's different ways you could approach that, but no, that's definitely something to keep in consideration because I could see a lot of people not thinking about that and getting pages taken down. Yeah, I'm sure they'll still be taking them down.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous for it. I don't know. Our partners never, but I'm a little nervous for just anyone really that would think, either that does it themselves or any kind of agency that might forget that says, oh shoot, it's July 15th. Why is our page down? And I already know that all the help desks are going to be flooded with calls from July, from probably till now until after Prime Day. So I'm concerned to say the least. But hopefully, and knock on wood for the spirit of competition, but hopefully it's our competitors. Kind of like with the Cowboys. I'll never cheer for an injury on the Eagles because I know what injuries are like on our team. But there's no but, because I would never cheer for an injury. I want fair competition between both teams. Whatever team is better wins. There's not, we're missing a player, so we lost kind of thing. It's happening to my Phillies right now. It's a shame. We're down 3 of our all-stars. But it doesn't matter. We won yesterday, but it was against a very bad team. I don't know if if we talk about baseball, are you a Rangers fan? Texas Rangers?
Yeah, I mean,
Huge
if you want to
win
talk about
yesterday.
injuries,
Yeah, and
that
yeah.
was great. But if you want to talk about injuries, man, they got like the backup team out there most of this season. I mean, we're still riding high off last year, but we this year's not looking so bright. Well, we give them a pass for a couple of years, I guess, but man,
No, it was like I said, this has been a little bit of a down month here. But it's exciting because, we're still at the best record in baseball, and our guys are stepping up, next man up kind of mentality, which is great. But yeah, well, it's interesting to see how this season plays out. We'll see. I'm always going to be betting on the Phils for them to, this could be the year once everyone's healthy again and we got all of our stars back, that, maybe we, instead of losing to the Diamondbacks and instead of, oh my God, instead of blowing it against the
I'm
Astros,
thankful for that one.
I couldn't believe that. Oh my God. I don't mean to be mean, but if we played you guys in the World Series, I think it would have been a 4-0 sweep last year. I don't know. Could have been. Maybe.
I would have been
Never
a
know.
lot more scared than playing the Diamondbacks. After playing the Astros and the
What a great series.
conference championship, I was like, oh, we're good. Like the Diamondbacks, I'm not worried. But and clearly we saw that. So I don't know. I don't know what happened over on that side of things. But no, I mean, it was not. It's been a different story this season. It's probably going to be someone else's chance.
We'll see. We'll see. But Kenton, I want to give you a chance here to give any final thoughts kind of on all we've talked about today and really all we've gone over, and really just any advice you have for our Amazon sellers, maybe as we go into Prime Day and as we kind of explore this, new area of the, going before and after. Any final thoughts on just information in general about for an Amazon seller?
Yeah, I think no matter what scale you're at, a lot of success on Amazon, not even just in an advertising space, but across the board, it comes back to, how can I pre-planning and having a strategy for measuring how you did. So what am I going to do? How did I do? How am I going to reapply this for the next time around? And I think when I've been in an agency perspective, that's most of the job, right? When you're in an agency side, is okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we did do. Here's how we're going to make changes and pivot off of that. And so I think obviously measurement is a big piece of that. But trying new things, testing new things, I think you should always be testing something, whether that's a new creative, a new ad strategy, a new creative in your ad strategy, new text. Like there's so many different levers you can pull on Amazon that I feel like no matter the size of a brand, you should always be testing something. There's always tools out there to help you test these things easily, help you measure it afterwards, make changes accordingly. So I think it's always be testing, always be trying to learn something, and then always have a plan before you go into that of how am I going to measure this? How am I going to deem this success? to make those changes off of that. And I think Prime Day, as we've talked about, is a great example of that. Go into it, have your plan, but one of the biggest parts I think is measuring it, because there's going to be two more events this year and then Prime Days for years to come that, maybe this year you only get 80% of the sales you could have, but take that next year and now you're getting 90%. And, continue to see that flywheel of increases. We're going to see a lot of those similar trends. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ken, I want to thank you again for coming on the show today and talking to us about Prime Day and a variety of topics around information gathering and planning, and the list goes on. But I really thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an honor talking to you. But it's about collecting data and also about Dallas sports. So
Cool. No, I appreciate it, Pete. Thanks for having me.
yeah, of course. Thanks everybody for watching. I am Velocity Pete, and we will see you next week.